Cancurla, in last year's budget for 2010, the Minister for Finance introduced or announced a fairly modest measure whereby tax exiles would pay a levy to the Irish state. Now, it was subject to a number of fairly generous conditions. They would have to have an income of in excess of €1 million a year. They'd have to have Irish property worth more than €5 million a year. Now, to date, Taoiseach, not a single cent has been collected from that levy. And in reply to Deputy Shortall, the Minister for Finance a few days ago told her that, in fact, the first amount to be collected from that will not be due until the 31st of October 2011. Now, meanwhile, carers in yesterday's budget have been cut for the second time by €8 a week. People on the blind pension have been cut for the second time by €8 a week. Widows have been cut, same amount. People who have lost their jobs have been cut for the second time. And all of these cuts, which are cuts for the second time, will come into effect in about 3 weeks' time at the beginning of the new year. Can you explain to me, Taoiseach, why tax exiles, the measure that was introduced last year, is going to take 2 years to come into effect, whereas people who are on some of the lowest incomes in the country, carers, widows, people who've lost their jobs, and blind people, have been hit twice in the same period of time, and the pain that's being inflicted on them comes into effect immediately.
First.
That was a very interesting reply. And it was a very interesting reply because, of course, it is quite clear that the government and the Taoiseach hasn't given a second thought to the issue of tax exiles since this time last year, when last year's budget was introduced. This is a government that presides over a two-tier society. This is a government that treats one group of people who earn more than €1 million a year, who pay no tax to this state, with one set of laws, and who then turns around to carers and people who are unemployed, and the blind, and widows, and people who are in poor circumstances, and says, we all have to contribute. We all have to pull together. You have to contribute the same as everybody else. The reality here, Taoiseach, is these people, high wealth, high earnings, pay no tax to the state. You introduced a measure last year which would take, even if they do contribute to it, takes 2 years before it kicks in. No mention at all of them in this year's budget, and you can't tell me why they're getting 2 years to make their contribution, and in that same 2-year period, people who are on the lowest levels of income are having their income cut twice, and that cut takes effect immediately. Now, we had a situation here last night where, in the middle of the night, Deputy Healy-Rae and Deputy Lowry and Deputy Matty McGrath and Deputy Behan, who have made all kinds of noises before this budget came in, could come in here last night and in the middle of the night vote on kind of obscure financial resolutions, and they voted for the budget and so on. In the next 24 hours, they are going to have to come in here and they're going to have to cut the money that is paid to blind people, to widows, to people who have disabilities, people who are in poor circumstances for the second time over this budgetary period, while people who are tax exiles, who are paying no income tax to the state, haven't yet paid a single cent of the amount that was announced last year. There are 2 laws, Taoiseach, you're presiding over them. There's one law for tax exiles and there's another law for people who are dependent on social welfare payments.